1080 WKJK.
You're listening to Kentucky Sports Radio on Talk Radio 1080.
Welcome back, Kentucky Sports Radio. Happy to be joined on the phone now from the Lexington Herald-Leader, their editorial cartoonist, Joel Pett. Joel, how are you?
I'm good, Matt. Thanks.
Thank you very much for taking the time to come on. You created quite a stir in the bluegrass with the cartoon. Before we talk about the specifics of it, I always wonder this. You've been doing this. How long have you been doing this at the Herald-Leader?
Man, your whole life, buddy. 28 years.
28 years. I'm a little older than that, but not by much. In terms of feedback / pushback from readers, where does yesterday rank on the scale in your time in doing these?
You know, it's interesting. You asked me that yesterday, and I wasn't sure yet. But overnight, I got some pretty mean calls at home, and
that's people. That's unfortunate. The people calling you home. That shouldn't be done.
Mostly just sort of the kind of threats that don't really concern you. You know, I'm coming down there. Like, well, good. I'm asleep. It's funny. I'd say it ranks near the top, and the thing that rivals it in tone is the Iraq War, which is interesting because I think there's a certain almost religious tribalism to both UK sports and, virtually every hotspot in the world politically. So there's your answer.
A lot of people, most people I think listening to this have seen the cartoon. You had the Coach John Calipari trophy case. It had a couple spots where you'd written vacated. It had the NCAA trophy with dollar signs on it, and then it had a basketball that says "I lost Indiana and I'm taking my ball and going home." See, you found it very funny. What was the message? I mean, it's hard with jokes to explain them because they lose some of their thing. I get that, but since it is radio and people can't see it, what was the message you were trying to convey?
Well, it's funny. I've been thinking about how hard people take stuff like this, and they take it way harder when it's in print than, like, if I was sitting around with 15 UK fans, and I think by now most people know that I went to Indiana. My dad was on the faculty there for 40 years, and I'm a Bloomington guy, although I've now lived in Lexington longer than I lived in Bloomington. And if I was sitting around with a bunch of UK fans and I went, Calipari's a pussy, he lost up there one time and now he won't go back, they'd all go, you're just a sore loser, we won the championship, you buy the beer. You know, they wouldn't like stand up and go, I hate you, dude, you better watch yourself. They just wouldn't do that. There's something about cartoons that gets people going. The message, I think, was really clear that, first of all, that I was incensed that since 1969, I guess, this rivalry is apparently coming to at least a temporary end, and I think Indiana has the right position that they should play in Bloomington and Lexington on the campuses of the where the alleged student athletes actually supposedly go to school or do go to school and for a year. And secondly, the most widely misinterpreted piece of it, as far as I can tell, is the dollar signs on the NCAA trophy, which are being interpreted by UK fans with long memories and guilty consciences as an indication on my part that somehow these players are getting directly paid. But I was just thinking of how NCAA sports has become a enormous billion-dollar business, and that Kentucky gets the best players because they know it's the quickest ticket to wealth, which I don't blame anybody individually for, but the NCAA.
Can I ask you about on your background? You're right that by now people know you went to Indiana, grew up in Bloomington. Don't you think, though, when the cartoon's published, that disclaimer should be out there? I mean, you have a right to whatever your opinion is, but I actually was surprised to hear you had gone to Indiana and Bloomington. I didn't know that. And just in a sense of full disclosure, if you're taking a cartoon in which you're saying something sort of taking up for Indiana and blasting Kentucky, shouldn't you put that out there for people to know so that we don't have to look it up on Wikipedia?
No, I don't think so at all.
It doesn't matter. That doesn't matter, you don't think?
Well, when I draw cartoons about stuff in Africa, do I have to say that I lived for 5 years in Africa, or if I draw about the Catholic
but that's
Church,
not the same as where you went to college and who you might care about or grew up with. That's not the same thing. The fact that you visited a place or that you put time down there. I mean, rivalries. If you were a donor to the Democratic Party and you wrote cartoons about Republicans, I would assume the Herald Herald-Leader would make you say that. I mean, isn't the fact that your background is all Indiana relevant?
No, I don't think so. I mean, if Indiana wanted to play in Indy and Louisville, and Kentucky wanted to play at Rupp and in
which is what it used to be, by the way. That's what it was for 20 years. The positions were reversed.
Yeah, I know. Well, they were wrong back then.
Okay.
I think it's great to play in the arenas and on the campuses, and I understand that the Bloomington fans didn't treat the team particularly civilly the last time up there, but having gotten the same treatment from the Kentucky fans for the last 48 hours, I just think that goes with the territory.
Do you left out the Final Four trophy from the season prior? Why'd you do that?
Well, it's not supposed to be an accurate depiction of his trophy case. My guess is he's got more trophies than you could possibly.
Did you leave it out because it would be the one thing positive?
Well, I mean, that's a difficult thing to figure. You know, when you're drawing something like this, you don't want to clutter it up with things
with facts
really relevant to the. Yeah, you could say it that way. I mean, an editorial cartoon is not an attempt to show facts. It is an attempt to explain an opinion using all kinds of tricks and symbols and things. So I never even occurred to me to do that, to be honest with you.
I by the way, and I've said a lot on this show, and I think it goes without saying that you clearly, of course, have a right to do that. And there's well,
thank you.
Well, no, I mean, I'm not. You don't need my justification, but I say that as a preface to part two, and I want to give you a little background and then hear your opinion on this. You're not the person that decides the business side of all this, but I'm sort of fascinated, not being in the newspaper industry, at the fact that I don't feel like the newspaper industry necessarily, like any other business, actually cares so much about its customers. And I wanted to give you a hypothetical. Let's say 500 people canceled their subscriptions because of your cartoon. My guess is it's not that high. My guess is a lot of people say they'll do it, but don't. But let's say it's 500. I know that my parents pay about $100 a year for their Herald-Leader subscription. We've heard that people can get them for 11 cents, but let's say that it's $100 a year. 500 times 100, your cartoon, in theory, costs $50,000 in revenue. Now, I don't have to tell you that the newspaper industry is cutting jobs all the time. Let's say that with that $50,000, the Herald-Leader basically has to go lay someone off because they've just lost $50,000 in revenue. For you, Joel Pett, was it worth?
But the decision.
Hey, Joel, hang on just a second, because you cursed right there. We had to hit a.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We had to hit a drop. It's okay. We caught it. But because of the delay, I want to hold you up because I do want to hear your answer.
You want me to start again?
Well, you don't have to start the whole thing again. We'll be caught up here in just a second, and I want you to. I want your answer to actually be heard and not be on the delay. So let's try again. I said that if it was $50,000 lost revenue, one of your colleagues might lose their job. What would you say is your explanation? Is that worth it?
Well, I would, of course, feel terrible about it, and the decisions about the business don't really enter into what we do editorially and shouldn't. It's supposed to be kept separate. I know that in some media, like in your case, you basically exist as an arm of UK sports.
That's false. Really. First of all, I'm not going to let you get away with that. That's false. I mean, we are not. I'm not an entity with any connection to UK sports except for the fact that I'm a fan. But look, the Herald-Leader. Let's not act like, Joel, you guys are all that different. You all put special picture sections out that are nothing but, hey, fans, buy this. So, Joel,
no, that's true.
We're no different in many ways.
There's a big number of people who feel like we are total boosters, and have sacrificed journalistic integrity to become boosters of the program, which is, I think, what people say about your show.
So without question, they would say that. My point is, on some levels, you are not that different when there are 5 different, national championship picture things. So
I agree with you. I've drawn plenty of cartoons over the years criticizing our own paper over being cheerleaders for UK sports.
Yeah. Okay, we just got like a minute left before I have to go to break. So, but I want you to answer that question about your colleague losing a job.
I would feel terrible, but it's not really a consideration when I'm doing my work.
So it's it's, in your mind, worth it?
Well, it hasn't happened.
But it could. I mean, the reality is it could. And is it worth it?
I wouldn't. I don't know. I'm not sure I would know until I was in this situation.
Okay. Well, Joel, thank you very much for taking the time to come on the air. As I said before, no one else from your newspaper has ever had the guts to do it. And I give you a credit for doing it. You and I disagree on some of this, but I appreciate your honesty. Thank you very much.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Appreciate it. We'll take a quick break. Actually, we have like a minute left. Well, I didn't get the timing right. I appreciate him doing that. What do you think, Drew?
Well, it wasn't the uninteresting interview I predicted.
I told you.
You said it'd be boring.
I told you it wouldn't be boring.
It wasn't boring for a
cartoonist.
Drew over
the people running the dump button. Yeah. It wasn't boring at all.
Cartoonist with a dirty mouth.
Wow.
Kept me busy over here.
I tell you what, just so people know what was actually said, can we do the podcast without the dump? Or
I think once I do that, I think it kicks it out of the system.
Oh, that's too bad because
it was entertaining.
Someone needs to watch.
We didn't drop the first one, but the second one. Let me say this: leave aside the language part, which he shouldn't have done. I give him credit for being honest about his answers, and I actually think the question about would you your colleague gave him pause. Would you agree with that? It sounded like he wasn't. That gave him pause. And that's the reality of the business side of this, is that people are going to lose their jobs if you do things like this in the hometown paper. 502-571-1080, 877-904-1080. We'll take your calls on what you thought about the interview. Drew still got big bug eyes. He can't even believe what just happened. We'll take a break. We'll be right back.